Everybody, I am super excited today to come to you with a couple awesome chapters in the Bible. I am joined by my beautiful, lovely wife, Megan, and we're going to do two chapters today from Leviticus and Luke, and there's going to be a link in the bottom for you guys to follow along. So we hope you have a good time and enjoy.
Yeah, so the link that he's talking about is the Torah portions for the week. Torah portion is Leviticus chapter 9, verse 1 through chapter 11, verse 47. The prophet section is Ezekiel chapter 45, verse 16 through chapter 46, verse 18, which that portion is really cool because it's talking about the millennial reign. And then the gospel section is Luke chapter 22, verses 1 through 13, which I will read. He's going to read Leviticus 11, which are the food laws. So I'll let you jump in.
Yes, and I have been very interested as a refresher reading Leviticus because, we go through life and it's really hard to not eat many of the foods out there. We go to a fast food restaurant and we order from the menu, or we go to the store, and it's easy to forget what Yahweh, the laws that He placed here for us to the foods that we eat. What's clean and what's unclean. So I'm really looking forward to following along with reading with you guys. Adonai said to Moshe and Aaron, "Tell the people of Israel, these are the living creatures which you may eat among all the land animals. Any that has a separate hoof, which is completely divided and chews the cud, these animals you may eat. But you are not to eat that only chew the cud or only have a separate hoof. For example, the camel, the coney, and the hare are unclean for you, because they chew the cud, but they don't have a separate hoof. While the pig is unclean for you, because although it has a separate and completely divided hoof, it doesn't chew the cud. You are not to eat meat from these or touch their carcasses. They are unclean for you. One of the things that live in the water, you may eat these. Anything in the water that has fins and scales, whether in seas or in rivers, these you may eat. But everything in the seas and rivers without both fins and scales, all of the small water creatures and all of the living creatures in the water, it is a detestable thing for you. Yes, these will be detestable for you. You are not to eat their meat, and you are not to detest their carcasses. Whatever lacks fins and scales in the water is a detestable thing for you. The following creatures of the air are to be detestable for you. They are not to be eaten. They are detestable. They are a detestable thing. The eagle, the vulture, the osprey, the kite, the various kinds of buzzards, the various kinds of ravens, the ostrich, the screech owl, and the seagull, the various kinds of hawks, the little owl, the cormorant, the great owl, the horned owl, the pelican, the barn owl, the stork, the various kinds of herons and hopi, and the bat. All winged, swarming ant creatures that go on all fours are a detestable thing for you, except all of the winged, swarming creatures that go on all fours. You may eat these that have joined legs and their feet, enabling them to jump off the ground. Specifically of these you may eat the various kinds of locusts, grasshoppers, katydids, and crickets. But these you may eat. But other than that, all winged swarming creatures have 4 feet. Having 4 feet are a detestable thing for you. The following will make you unclean. Whoever touches the carcasses of them will be unclean until evening. And whoever picks up any part of their carcass is to wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Every animal that has a separate but incompletely divided hoof, or that doesn't chew the cud, is unclean for you. Anyone who touches them will become unclean. Whoever goes on its paws among all fours that go on all fours is unclean for you. Whoever touches its carcass will be unclean until evening. And whoever picks up its carcass is to wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. These are unclean for you. The following are unclean for you among the small creatures that swarm on the ground: the weasel, the mouse, the various kinds of lizards, the gecko, the land crocodile, the skink, the sand lizard, and the charmeleon. They are unclean, crawling creatures. Whoever touches them when they are dead will be unclean until evening. Anything on which one of them falls when dead will become unclean. Wooden utensil, article of clothing, leather, sacking, any utensil for work, it may be put in water, and it will be unclean until evening. Then it will be clean. If one of them falls into a clay pot, whatever it is in it will become unclean, and you are to break the pot. Any food permitted to be eaten, or water from such a vessel gets on, will become unclean, and any permitted liquid in such vessel will become unclean. Everything on which any carcass part of their falls will become unclean. Whoever oven or stove, it has to be broken in pieces. They are unclean and will be unclean for you. Although a spring or cistern for collecting water remains clean, but anyone who touches one of these carcasses will become unclean. If any carcass part of theirs falls into any kind of seed to be sown, it is clean. But if water is put on the seed and a carcass part of theirs falls on it, it is unclean for you. If any animal of a kind that are permitted to eat dies, whoever touches its carcass will be unclean until evening. A person who eats meat from its carcass or carries its carcass is to wash his clothes. He will be unclean until evening. Any creature that swarms on the ground is a detestable thing. It is not to be eaten. Whoever moves on its stomach goes on all fours or has many legs. All creatures that swarm on the ground, you are not to eat them, because they are detestable. They are a detestable thing. You are not to make yourselves detestable with any of these swarming, crawling creatures. Do not make yourselves unclean with them. Do not defile yourselves with them. For I am Adonai, your God. Therefore, consecrate yourself and be holy, for I am holy. And do not defile yourselves with any kind of swarming creature that moves along the ground. For I am Adonai, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt to be your God. Therefore you are to be holy, because I am holy. Such then is the law concerning animals, flying creatures, all living creatures that move about in the water, and all creatures that swarm on the ground. Its purpose is to distinguish between the unclean and the clean, and between these creatures that may be eaten and those that may not be eaten. Wow. I'm proud of myself for reading all that. But there is just so much guidance in there that Adonai gives us. And it's just really interesting to see, how clearly it's broken down, what is unclean and what is clean.
Well, and what is considered food and what is not considered food. And so for our family, we do try our best to follow what is clean and unclean. And a lot of people like to say that God made all food clean in the New Testament, with Peter's vision, or Jesus saying all food is clean, which is added into translation. Whenever you look at it, that verse is not there. It's usually in parentheses or in italics, and it's just added in by translators. What he is referring to is the ceremonial hand washing in those verses, not food. and the heart posture of the Pharisees. But it is really interesting to deep dive and research as to why God said certain things are clean and unclean. Like, we can look at pork. A lot of people jump and attack that one, but pork is full of parasites, and even after it's cooked, you can still get parasites. If you look at the cancer rates in countries that keep more kosher, they're much lower than countries that do not.
Yes.
And it's just really interesting to research and study out. You can look at, what do you call those things? Clams?
No.
What is that family? The mollusks. But you can watch really cool videos of where they'll put them in a dirty, skanky tank, and they filter it all out, and they clean the whole tank. But then, like, where does the funk go? In the critter.
Exactly.
And then if we're going to eat that critter, then we are ingesting that dirty, filthy funk.
Yep.
And so God made creatures for a reason and a purpose, to till the ground, to be the processors, decomposers, the filters, the cleaners.
Yes.
And that doesn't necessarily make them food.
And just to put this into perspective, I mean, reading Leviticus 11, what really stands out to me the most is God, you know, the foods that we have here on earth, you know, he breaks it down very clearly, what's clean and what's unclean. But the message, part of the message that I received from that is he wants us to live a long, healthy life. And breaking that down, the foods that are unclean, you know, like my wife was just mentioning, you know, those can make you sick, they're disease prone. And the foods that are clean, those are good and healthy for us to eat. And I think a lot of people, when they read that, me included, because sometimes I forget things, but that is a really good understanding of how amazing Adonai is. And I love reading that. So I really, for those of you that may not understand it, that's kind of how I understand it, get clarity from it. So
Luke chapter 22, verse 1 through 13. So this chapter talks about Passover, which our family is getting ready to celebrate. There's a video here on our channel, and there's a blog on our website all about Passover and kind of how our family celebrates it. So, but the festival of Matzah, also known as Pesach, which is Passover, it's actually the exact same word used in Acts chapter 12, verse 4 for Easter. It's Passover. Was approaching, and the head of the Conan and the Torah teachers began trying to find some way to get rid of Yeshua because they were afraid of the people. At this point, the adversary went into Judah from Iscariot, who was one of the 12. He approached the head of the Cohen and the temple guard and discussed with them how he might turn Yeshua over to them. They were pleased and offered to pay him money. He agreed and began looking for a good opportunity to betray Yeshua without the people's knowledge. Then came the day of Matzah, on which the Passover lamb had to be killed. Yeshua sent Kepha and Jonathan, instructing them, "Go and prepare our Seder so we can eat." They asked him, "Where do you want us to prepare it?" And he told them, "As you're going into the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him into the house he enters and say to its owner, 'The rabbi says to you, where is the guest room where I am to eat the Pesach meal with my Talmudim,' otherwise known as disciples. He will show you a large room upstairs, already finished. Make the preparations there." They went and found things just as Yeshua had told them they would be, and they prepared the Seder. So, just really cool.
it's awesome.
The beauty of Passover.
Yes.
And what's really interesting is Judas gets paid the bride price. The 30 pieces of silver is just really interesting, and the meaning behind it. So Yeshua was the cost of a bride price, and we are the bride, and he is the bridegroom. And how deep that can go is just really beautiful. So, if you want to learn more about Passover, like I said, there's a video and a blog. We are excited. It is coming up.
It is. Yes. As my wife read, it's just amazing to see just Passover. I'm excited and looking forward to it. We want it to be the best this year, and just give all the praise and have a great time doing it.
Yeah, teaching our children.
Yes, that's a big part of it. Teaching our kids why we believe what we believe and what Passover means.
So that's kind of, I think, all we have here today.
Yes.
So, if you have any comments, drop them down below. Until next week, may Adonai bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you, and may He give you His shalom.
Yep. We love you guys so much, and we hope you enjoyed it. So have an amazing rest of your day.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Your hair's a little crazy over there.
Remember, your significant others love you for no matter what. Even if your hair is a mess, or you look like a kite in the sky that can't fly.
Really?
But anyway.
Really? Yeah, but it's not his fault.
Hey, like I say, one good fart a day keeps the doctor away.
Oh my gosh, I'm not using any of this. Come on now.
I'm just kidding. But
No, you're not.
You
always say better out than in.
I do. That's my Shrek's philosophy.
Oh my gosh. Welcome back to the
but
Wolterman Homestead.
We are going to get started with this beautiful, lovely Bible study. Me and my wife are super excited to be coming to you today with some Bible verses, chapters from Leviticus and
Luke.
Luke.
Can we just start over, please?
Really?